All right, welcome back to RevOps Bennett. I'm Bennett. Really appreciate you joining me today. Today we're going to be doing the first video in a larger video series around the beautification of Salesforce. And as you know, RevOps Bennett, me, is all about making sure that the end users have a really good experience in whatever system they're in, right? But we're going to be focusing in on Salesforce. And so BDRs, AEs, SEs, CSMs, making sure that they have a layout within Salesforce that they feel confident with, comfortable with, that is streamlined, organized in a clean and efficient way, where the information that they care about is where it needs to be. And that's what we're going to focus in on this series. So we're going to look at really making Salesforce a better place to work. And we're going to look at 3 ways to beautify Salesforce. Thanks again for joining RevOps Bennett. All right, so let's dive into it. The first way to beautify Salesforce is to pull information from one object to another object using what they call a related record component within the page layout. So instead of having to create a bunch of formula fields that pull information, for example, from the account to the opportunity, we can actually display account fields directly within the opportunity page layout without them ever really having to exist within the opportunity itself. You'll see that in the top right-hand corner of this screen here. So I'm on an opportunity looking at a renewal here. And within the opportunity itself, I'm able to show account information. So the account name, its website, its industry, its ERP system, and its annual revenue. So let's show you how we get to this point. All right, so diving into the Lightning App Builder onto a page layout here. We're going to first, in order to pull account information onto the opportunity, we're going to look for the component related record. In this case, the related record is going to be the account information. So we're going to edit the lookup fields to be the account name. Then we're going to have an update action. Our update action that we've already created is update account details, and I'll show you in a second how to do that. And then we'll have our create new account as the create action here. And you'll already see, if we zoom in here, that the account details is now stamped into the opportunity itself. Now we're going to create this update action. In order to do that, you're going to go onto the account object, into buttons and links, and then click on new action. We've already built an action down below called update account details. We'll edit the layout here, and you'll see this is the layout that we've created for this action, and you're going to see that displayed within our opportunity layout. All right, so let's see this in action now. Let's say that I'm an annoying admin and I really want the ERP information on the account to be entered once the opportunity has hit a certain stage. So I create a validation rule that says, hey, anytime an opportunity moves past XYZ stage, this field in the account needs to be filled out. In the worst case scenario, the account executive would hit this validation rule, need to go back to the account, fill out the ERP field, go back to the opportunity, and move the stages. Not so much in this case. So let's try it out. We're going to mark this stage as complete, and we're going to get a validation rule. This validation rule basically says that in order to move it past this stage, you need to enter in the ERP information, but that you do not need to navigate to the account record. Simply enter the information in the ERP field located in the account information section at the top right corner of this page. So we're directing them to, hey, you do not need to navigate to the account in order to enter this information. We have the account information displayed within the opportunity itself. You can enter it there. So let's enter in our ERP information within the opportunity. And now let's try to move stages. And it's updated successfully. And of course, this information now lives on the account itself as well. So whenever you're putting in validation rules that are tied to a different object, especially an account object when you're on an opportunity, think about creating this on your opportunity page layout and putting all the fields that are required through a validation rule within this component so that your reps never need to move from the opportunity back to the account and then back to the opportunity again. Hope you found that helpful. Let's dive into number 2, the second way to beautify Salesforce. And that's going to be whenever we're using a text field to make it the entire width of that page layout. So we're going to see that as an example here within our notes section. I have a couple of fields that are taking the entire width of the page. That is description, next step list. And then I have two fields that are date fields, next step date, next step change date, that I don't need to have span the entire width of Salesforce. They have the regular one column and one column format. This way, if I go ahead and add a description to this opportunity, this allows us to have that text field not just pull down the entire opportunity. If you were to enter this into a text field that's just one column, it pushes the entire opportunity and all the fields, a lot further down, and it just throws off the format. This way you maintain symmetry. The text is all there for you to be able to read, and it's not elongating the page a ton. So let's dive into how we do this exactly. So how we're going to do this is actually using a separate section, but hiding the header. So you'll see here that I actually have two sections, one labeled notes, where I have description, next step, and the next step list. And then I have a new section that is, the header is not visible, where I have the next step date and the next step change date. So this is technically two sections, but it looks like one because I'm hiding that new section. To do that, you just go in here into your selection properties, and then display section header on, you select off, or you unselect detail page and edit page. And so you'll see here, this is two columns, whereas this one here is one column. And Salesforce won't allow you to make one section with both one column and two column fields. So this is the way to get around that. And this just makes the page layout feel so much better. If you again have this in one column, you can imagine it just pulling the page down, and all the fields that would otherwise be neatly assorted look totally weird. All right, tip number 3. So this is a little bit less used. I haven't seen this in many orgs, but I think this is something that can apply and be really helpful pretty often. So this is going to be a field that is purely used to describe what someone's seeing in a page layout. So I have this section called the growth and reduction summary, really just a section within the renewal opportunity for CSMs to understand how are we doing in this renewal versus the previous renewal. And we have a few different ways that we measure our success. There's NRR, there's GRR, and then we have a field called our expected contract ARR, which factors in upsells as well. So within my sandbox org here, RevOps Bennett Sandbox, there's those 3 ways that we really want to look at measuring ourselves from a CS standpoint. And I really want the CS team to intimately know those fields. I want them to understand when they look at a page what those fields are saying, how they impact our company's numbers, how they impact their commissions. And so I want to clearly state that within the page layout. And again, you can't do that. However, we have a workaround here by creating that field. And we have that field called, again, field explanation 3 measurements. So you'll see this field, it's a text formula field. And really all we're doing is we are writing out our text that we want to display within the page layout. So we have number 1, then the field, and then a definition. Number 2, the field, and then a definition, and number 3. The only thing to notice here is that we have these little page breaks, which just makes it a little bit easier on the eyes when it's being displayed on the layout. And from a layout standpoint, we are actually using tip number 2 within this field. So we have the growth and reduction summary, which is one section. Then we have a hidden section that really houses the rest of our revenue fields. That is a 2-column section. So really applying tip number 2 to tip number 3. All right, well, I hope you found that helpful. The whole goal here is just to make Salesforce just a little bit easier to use in the day in and day out of a CSM, AE, and BDR. And if we're accomplishing that even just a little bit, the beautification of Salesforce, that's a win for RevOps. So if you like this video, we'll like it, subscribe, comment. I would appreciate that. And we'll do others in this series as well. Thanks a lot. Bye, Mom.